Hi, and welcome to another video by Jim the Car Guy. Today, as you can tell, we're not at the shop. We're actually working in my garage at home. I'm doing one of my neighbors a favor. What we have here is a 2015. It's a Honda CR-V, and we're going to be replacing the front brake pads and rotors. There is kind of a rusting issue on this. I did do the right side already. Rust is a big problem with this because this vehicle actually spends a lot of time down the South Jersey, which is a very salty environment, so it does get a little bit of rust on there, which we had on the other side. But I'm going to bring you in now. I'm going to show you what we're going to do. I'm going to show you what tools we're going to need, and then we're going to get this job done. All right, so let me bring you in, show you what we're going to need, and I'll explain what we're going to do, and then we'll get it done. So come on, I'll show you. Okay. This is an example. These are my gloves. You know I don't do anything without wearing my gloves. This is our new brake rotor. As you can see, this is one of those plated rotors. They're electro something or other plated so they don't rust as badly. These are the new brake pads we're going to be using. Not that I'm pushing one brake pad over another. These just happen to be the ones that my friend picked up. Alright, so we are going to clean this rotor off with brake cleaner, just so you know. We're going to clean this off, we're going to clean this part off here, and then we're going to turn it over and do the exact same thing inside there. First thing we're going to do before we do anything is we're going to come in over here, and I don't know if you can see this, but right here, you can see there's a screw here. So we're going to take out the screw here. Oh, it looks like somebody left that screw out on there already, but usually there's two screws in here. We usually take both those screws out. As you can see, I was telling you about a significant amount of rust. But, you know, so we are going to be changing these rotors. I know a lot of people are going to look at them and say, why are you replacing them? Because they look like there's nothing wrong with them. The brakes on this vehicle pulsate like crazy, so that's why we're changing the rotors, and we're going to change the brake pads. The pads are thick, the rotors are thick, but they pulsate like crazy. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to come in here with a pry bar. We're going to put the pry bar in here, and we're going to push those pistons back in to the bore there if we can get in there. If we can't, then what we're going to do is we're going to take out that 14 millimeter there, that 14 millimeter there, and we're going to pull the caliper back, and then we'll push the pistons back in using a special tool, which I'll explain to you in a minute. Then we're going to come in here, we're going to take out that 19 millimeter right there, and there's also another 19 millimeter right down there as well. We're going to take that out. And of course, like I told you, we're going to take that screw out there, and then this rotor should come off. We may have to persuade it with a hammer, but we will get it off. All right, so now that's how we do the job. This is what we're going to need as far as tools to get the job done. Not that I'm pushing one kind of brake cleaner over another, or one kind of a silicone over another, but you want to use a silicone to lubricate everything. Any kind of a brake cleaner to clean that oily substance off of the new rotor. This 17 millimeter, we may need it, we may not, because I'm wrong, it's an 18 millimeter. But if the 18 millimeter goes on here, if you try to take off this bolt here and this rotates, then you would actually hold it with the 18 millimeter, which I will get the correct size shortly. We're going to need a small pry bar like this to push the piston back in. We're going to need a file or a scraper or some emery cloth to clean up the hub area right here once we get this off, and to also clean up everywhere inside here as well. We're going to need that socket that I told you. It's a 14 millimeter and a 19 millimeter, a very long extension, because the longer the extension, the easier it is to remove the bolts. This is the tool that we use to push the piston back in if we have to. This is the driver that I use to get these screws out right here. These drivers make it a heck of a lot easier. And of course a hammer to tap it and get the thing moving. Alright, so let me get my gloves on, and we're going to get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to take out that bolt right there. Sometimes they come out pretty easily, sometimes they don't. But we're going to try it with this driver, and we'll see how it comes out. Okay, what I normally do, let's get some light in here so you can see, hopefully. Yeah, it looks pretty good. What I usually do is I take a driver such as this, any kind of metal drift, any kind of a punch, anything like that, put it on the screw itself right here, and you hit it a couple of times pretty firmly. And that usually breaks the rust loose that's on the threads. Then we're going to take our driver, because these are usually fairly tight. Let's see. Yeah. We put our driver on here like this, put it on here, and just hit it a couple of firm shots. Okay. And it does turn and come right out. These sometimes can be a real pain in the rear end to get out. So if it's really tight and you're having a problem getting it out, make sure you use that drift. Put it on here, give it a couple of shots firmly, and it'll break the rust loose on the back of it, and we'll get these screws out. I usually don't throw these away. A lot of people do. I usually reuse them, so we'll put this on the side for now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take out that 14mm bolt over there. So let me relocate you and we'll do that. Okay, now that we have the, let's get some light in there so you can see maybe a little better. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Okay, we're going to try to get in here with a pry bar, just to push that piston back in. Sometimes you can do it, sometimes you can't. And you can see it starts to move a little bit, but it's a little bit tight, so we're just going to keep constant pressure on it, and we'll push that piston back in. Alright, so now we're going to come in here with our 14mm, and we're going to loosen these bolts. You want to loosen top and bottom first before you take them out, because if you take out this bolt and you try to loosen this one, the caliper itself is going to move around. So I always recommend leaving the bolts in, break them both loose first, and then you can go from there and take them both out once you break them loose. Don't lose these because we're going to need them. Okay. Now our caliper should come right off, because we did push it in a little bit. But now what we need to do, we need to push these pistons back in right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take out the brake pad here. And here. Put them back up in there like that. And then we take our tool like this. You see okay there, yeah. Put it in here like this. And then we just turn it, and we can push these pistons back into the bore. I will point this out to you too. Make sure you put something underneath it, because the rust will get all over the floor of the garage you're working in. Me, I always like to keep everything nice and clean, so I put down a mat that I brought from work to put underneath the vehicle so we don't make a mess in the garage. Alright, and now you can see we push the pistons all the way back in. Can you see that? You can see we push the pistons all the way back in, so they're in as far as they go. And now we'll take off this tool. These we're going to put on the side for now. I forgot to mention, you need a tool or a piece of hanger or wire or something to keep the caliper up and out of the way while you're working. So what I do is you'll usually just take the tool like this, put it through here, and then just lift the caliper up and out of the way, just like that, so it's not bothering you. Alright, next thing we're going to do, we're going to take out that 19mm bolt right there. Again, don't take the bolt out. If you take the bolt out and then you try to come up to the top one to take that out, what's going to happen then is the bracket is going to rotate up. So we're going to put this up here like this, break it loose. Now you know that the bolts are usually pretty tight. You see I use a very long extension right here, because the longer the extension, the more leverage you have. But did you also notice I put my knee under it, and you can push up on it and get that to loosen up too, because sometimes they can be extremely tight. Alright, so we're going to take this out now. After you have them both loose, then of course you can remove them. Again, don't lose these bolts because you are going to need to use them again. We take our bracket and put it down on the ground. Now normally I always change these slide clips here, the hardware kit. Problem is that the friend of mine bought this kit and it does not have the hardware, so we are going to have to reuse these. So we're going to put this off to the side right now. We're going to take this rotor off here. Now as you can see, rust, I told you, is a big issue, but it doesn't really matter if there's rust on it. You can actually screw in a bolt right through here. Let me bring you in now, show you what it looks like actually. This is the one that we took out right here. You can screw a bolt right into there, and you can screw it in here, and you can pop this rotor right off. Normally they come off pretty easily, but if not, you could do that. I'm just going to bang it a few times with a hammer, and we'll see if it pops off. Alright, now if you have a lot of rust or anything on there, you probably want to use some kind of eye protection. But let's give it a couple of shots and we'll see what happens. Now you can hit it this way, or you can hit it this way. Alright? See what I mean about a lot of rust? It's not too bad though. Alright, so now I will show you this, and then I'm just going to clean it up. I'll bring you in there, I'm going to show you. You see all this rust that's on here like this? This needs to be cleaned up, because if this is not cleaned up, it's going to cause the new rotor to be a little bit crooked and it's going to pulsate like crazy. So, different ways to clean it. You can clean it with a scraper. You can clean it with a file, such as this. Or you can get in here with emery cloth and clean it up with emery cloth. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to clean this all up. Once I get it cleaned up, we'll come back and we'll put this back together. Okay, so now once we have the hub here itself cleaned up, we're going to take our brake cleaner and we're going to clean off the rotor itself, the new rotor. So we're just going to spray it a little bit and then we'll wipe it down. The majority of the oil will come off. Some will get on from our hands, but we will clean it off before we take it for a test drive. I don't like the smell of brake cleaner. Alright, so now we got our rotor cleaned up really well. I will tell you this, with the rotors, make sure that you match up the rotor to make sure it's the same height and the same width, which I already did. Alright, now we're going to take our rotor, we're going to put it back onto the vehicle itself. Take this, put it on. Make sure your bolt holes line up on here, because remember we took out that little tiny screw that was in there with this driver. Let's get that out of the way. This. We did put a little bit of oil on the end of the, or I should say never seize, on the end of the bolt that we're putting on here. Now one of them was already missing, so we're not going to be able to do anything with that, of course. We'll just tap this on, and that's nice and tight. Now a lot of people leave these bolts out. That's personal preference. I never do. If it came on there, I usually put it back on too. Alright, now like I told you, the hardware here is not going to be changed because the kit that the friend of mine bought does not have it. So we are going to just lubricate these and we'll put it back together. We're going to pull out the slide pins and we're going to lubricate the slide pins too with some silicone grease. So what we're going to do one at a time. You just rotate it and pull it. I don't know if you can see that. rotate it, and pull it. And it comes out. Now there's brake cleaner on this rag, so we're going to clean the bolt down. Nice and clean. We're going to do one at a time. And we'll put some silicone on here. You just want to put a little bit on. Spread it around. And then we're going to put it back in just like this. Push it in all the way in. Rotate it until that little rubber piece pops up right up into the top there. And it did. All right, we'll do the same thing on this one now. Okay. Let's clean this off a little bit. Once it's nice and clean, we'll just lubricate it. And then we can put it right back in again. You're only using a little bit, you don't need a lot. And you want to always keep the silicone, we'll get on this end here just a little bit. You don't want to put any silicone on down over here, because if you put it down here, it may interfere with the installation. All right, we'll just take this, put it here, and you rotate it, and push it in, and the same thing until it pops up. And there, it popped up, and they slide nice and freely. Okay? Now we're going to put a little lubricant here, 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 and here, and then we're going to put the pads in on the floor here. So let me do that, and I'll angle you so you can see here. There we go. All right, so we're going to take a little bit of the silicone. We're going to put a little bit on all of these corners here. Now obviously if you had the hardware kit, you would change it at this point. But like I said, my friend didn't pick it up. He thinks he knows better. These were a little less expensive, so he got these. Okay. Now we know that the brake pad with the indicator on it was the inner. So match it up with the old pad that came out and make sure your indicator is in the correct location. Alright, so now we're going to put this one on here. And you just take it and push it in there. Like that. And then we're going to do the same thing on this one. I know I'm going to hear something about fingerprints on it, but I am going to clean this before I put it together, just so you know. Okay, the pads are in there like this now, like that. And now we're going to take this, and we're going to put it back onto the vehicle. See this? Let's just tilt you up so you can see. Okay, just like that. Now we're going to take our bolts, and we're going to catch them both. Before we tighten anything up, you want to make sure both of them are caught. Hold your brake pads so they don't fall out. Let's get some light over here so you can see better. How's that better? Yeah. Okay, now we're going to snug this down. And now we're going to snug the other 19mm bolt down as well. And now that you have them both caught in there, you can tighten them tight. There is torque specs on this, but obviously at home here I don't have a torque wrench, so we're just going to make sure they're tight. Squeeze our brake pads in again. And now we're going to take our caliper. Put this off to the side. Now every place that the brake pad touches on here, like this goes on like this, everywhere that it touches here, here, and here, as well as the two pistons, we're going to lubricate them with some some brake lube. So just a little bit on here. Everywhere that touches into the brake pad itself, you want to lubricate. Same thing on the pistons here. Okay. I'm just going to put this off to the side for now because we're done with this silicone, so we're just going to put this off to the side. Now we're going to put our caliper back on. Make sure when you put your caliper back on, you see this brake hose here? Make sure that your brake hose is not twisted around like this. If the hose is twisted like this, you're going to have a problem with the brakes, so make sure it's a nice straight turn. The reason I say that is because I've seen it many, many times where cars come into my shop and that hose is twisted in around and it's restricting the flow of brake fluid. All right, so now we push the pistons back in over here. Now we can catch the bolt here and here. Okay, and we're going to grab our 14mm socket and we're going to snug these down. They don't have to be really, really tight. You just want to snug them after they touch. Same thing here. Now remember what I was telling you before? If this rotates, if you try to tighten this up, you see that pin is turning right there, the slide pin? You could hold it with a regular wrench like this and make sure it's nice and tight, okay? And I was wrong, it is a 19mm. All right, so now we have everything is nice and tight. Okay, so let me take my gloves off and we're going to go through it, make sure we have everything done, and then we're going to put the wheel back on, pump the brake pedal up, and we're out the door. So let me bring you in there and I'll explain to you one more time what I did. Okay, we cleaned up the hub in here that the rotor fits on. We put our screw back in. The other one, somebody had left it out, so obviously we can't put that back in. So we have the screw tight. We actually, I did not mention this to you as well, I did lubricate the back over here, the hub itself, so that that rust doesn't take place again. So I did put some lubricant on the back there as well. We lubricated the hardware kit where the brake pads are going to touch. We put our hardware kit and the brake pads back in. We tightened up our 19mm here and also the 19mm down on the bottom, right down there too. We installed our brake pads into the mounting bracket. We lubricated every place that the brake pad is going to touch on the caliper, and we also lubricated the pistons. We slid the caliper back on and we tightened up this 14 and this 14, and you hold that with the 19 just in case that rotated. And that's it, this job is done. We're going to throw the wheel on now and I'm going to take it for a road test. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I'm not going to bore you with putting the wheel back on. I will tell you this though, when you put the brakes back, when you put the wheel back on, before you take it out and drive it, pump that brake pedal up a couple times because the pedal is going to sink to the floor, and then after 2 or 3 pumps it'll come right back up to the top and you'll have a nice firm brake pedal. Alright, so that's it. We're all done. Make sure you pump it up before you drive it and you'll be good to go. Alright, as always, thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next one.